Race day, the Point Park track and field teams competed at Slippery Rock over the weekend. Winning ways, find out which Point Park team extended their win streak. RTJR raised the Jolly Roger, of course. Major League Baseball is back for a full 162. It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm Taylor Spirito. As we head into the last month of school, spring sports are still in full swing. To start things off, we bring in our resident track expert, Natalia Hillen, to discuss this weekend's meet. Natalia, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Taylor.
So let's start with the men's team first. How was the meet for them?
So the men's team, I know a lot of the individuals weren't as happy with their times just because it was kind of cold out. You know, Slippery Rock's always cold. So overall, I'd say the men did pretty well individually, but as a team, I feel like they were not there.
So with the men, who's someone that we should be watching out for in the coming weeks leading up to the RSC championships?
We should definitely be watching out for Damir Stewart because he got a PR at our last meet for long jump, and he has the next few weeks he's going to be practicing and making sure that he's ready for conferences. He's definitely going to be. We have to watch out for him.
And with the women's team, switching over to your side, how did it go for you guys?
It actually went really well. I got 7th place out of 22 for hurdles, for the 100-meter hurdles, and I PR'd, which was awesome because I honestly wasn't expecting it with the cold weather, but I ended up being really well for us.
So throughout the United States right now, COVID restrictions are starting to opening up. Just as an example, like Pennsylvania, the restaurant capacity just went up to 75%. So with that being applicable to the track meets, how is it with things starting to open back up with the track meets?
So the outdoor track meets are definitely a little bit better than the indoor meets because obviously you're not an indoor facility. So whenever you're outside, it's definitely a lot better because you're definitely more spread out. And everyone is getting COVID tested every week for our meets. So it's definitely more comforting to know that everyone's going in with a negative test if you're going. But overall, I'd say it's definitely better than the indoor meets.
So you said you got 7th out of 22, you said?
Yes.
So for yourself personally, what's your goals for yourself heading into IUP next week?
So my personal goal is definitely for the 100-meter hurdles to get a lower time than what I got because I definitely see myself getting a lower time for conferences even. So just making sure that I'm going to keep practicing and working hard to get that lower time. And then also starting off with if I do the 400 hurdles the next meet, making sure that I get lower than the time that I got a couple weeks ago.
All right, thank you so much, Natalia, and best of luck to you and the whole track team. After the break, we're going to head on over to the Diamond. We'll be right back. Welcome back. After a strong month of March, the baseball team has carried their momentum into April. We bring in Colton Tobias to recap their weekend. Colton, thanks for being on with us.
Of course, Taylor. Thanks for having me back.
So how did it go against Ohio Christian for the baseball team?
Well, Taylor, they got the job done in blowout fashion. I was able to get to the game on a Friday in which they won 9-0, and then they won Game 2 on Saturday, 11-8, and then Game 3, 3-1 to complete the sweep against the Trailblazers and also stay undefeated against them, 19-0 ever since these two teams first played back in 2015.
So moving on to a more individual basis, Nick Beardsley started the series throwing 8 innings on Friday. So how did that set the tone for the next 2 over the weekend?
Well, Taylor, Nicholas Beardsley played lights out. He was actually just named the pitcher of the week in the RSC, as he also tried to approach history on Friday. So Nick needs 4 strikeouts to have the most in program history with 219. He currently has 216, and this is a record that hasn't been broken in 30 years, as Corey Harrisburg, who played for the Pioneers from 1988 to 1991, currently holds the record. So I think, depending on when Nick starts again, I think he will break it.
I was going to say, you think he could get it done?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even though we'll get to it a little later, which I'm sure that Coach Torres is going to be playing him in the Pioneers' biggest series this year.
So another player to watch out for is Ed Pfluger. He has his average up to 392, and he started in all 30 games. How much does he mean to this team?
Well, he hits home runs, Taylor. From the few games that I've called this season, I have been on the call for 2 of Eddie's home runs, and he was actually named Player of the Week in the RSC. He went 11 for 18 throughout the series. He had 6 extra base hits, and he had 10 RBIs, so you can always count on Eddie Pfluger, and the Pioneers are going to need him this weekend for sure.
So the baseball team has won 15 straight. How do they continue the success into the weekend when they host IU Southeast?
Taylor, this is going to be the biggest series for the Pioneers this year. IU Southeast is coming in 15-0 in RSC play, and the Pioneers are 12-3. So if the Pioneers sweep IU Southeast, they will take the lead in the RSC. So if the Pioneers want any chance of being true contenders in this conference this year, then this series is going to be big for them, knowing that they're going to be scratching some heads, knowing that this team can play with the best out there in the River States Conference. But the Pioneers are going to have to watch out because they do have a 3-game losing streak to IU Southeast dating all the way back to 2019.
All right, winner's going to take all for this one. Thank you so much for joining us, Colton. Now we're going to shift our focus over to softball. And for that, we bring in Nicole Capalco to make her Pioneer Sideline debut. Nicole?
Thanks, Taylor. The Pioneer softball team lost 2 games at Asbury this past Friday, but they bounced back with 2 wins on Saturday at Midway University. In the first game at Midway, the Pioneers scored 6 runs on 12 hits, but committed 3 errors. They held Midway to 1 run and only 2 hits. The second game was much cleaner, as the Pioneers scored 7 runs on 8 hits and had 0 errors. Midway only could score 2 runs and 9 hits, while they committed 4 errors. The Pioneers are led by Taylor Goldstrom, who leads the team in average, slugging, on-base percentage, and stolen bases. Softball will play 6 games in 4 days, starting with 2 against Ohio Christian Wednesday, and then continue conference play with 2 games Friday and 2 games Saturday. That's all I have for softball. Back to you, Taylor, at the desk.
Thanks, Nicole, and welcome to the Sideline family. Coming up after the break, we're going to break down regional and national. Don't go anywhere.
40% of food in the United States is never eaten. At the same time, 1 in 8 Americans is struggling to put enough food on the table. Before you let your food go bad or throw your leftovers in the garbage, think about your options. To learn more about food waste and how you can reduce food waste at home, visit www.nrdc.org/issues/food waste.
Welcome back to Sideline. To start with Pittsburgh news, the Pirates opened up play against the Cubs and won opening day, but then lost their next 2, and then continued on to Cincinnati, where they lost the first game of 3. They play the Cubs on Thursday, April 8th as their home opener. First pitch is at 1:35. But they'll do so without National League Rookie of the Year favorite Ke'Bryan Hayes, who landed on the injured list with left wrist inflammation. And the Penguins will call Frederick Gaudreau, Radim Zahorna, and Drew O'Connor ahead of their game against the Rangers tonight, while placing Brandon Tanev on the injured reserve. And then to start with national news, we take a look at Atlanta, Georgia. The MLB All-Star Game has a new home. After being scheduled in Atlanta to begin the year, it was announced that it will be instead played in Denver, Colorado. Why the move? Well, with the ongoing debates over the controversial voting law in Georgia, MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred said, quote, "Major League Baseball fundamentally supports voting rights for all Americans and opposes restrictions to the ballot box," end quote. The league will still honor the late Hank Aaron. The Atlanta Braves released a statement reading, quote, "This was neither our decision nor our recommendation, and we are saddened that fans will not be able to see this event in our city. The Braves organization will continue to stress the importance of equal voting opportunities and hoped our city could use this event as a platform to enhance the discussion," end quote. The game will be played Tuesday, July 13th at Coors Field. We will further discuss the All-Star festivities after the break and everyone's favorite, the case of the week. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sideline. As we discussed before the break, the MLB relocated the All-Star Game. To get his thoughts, we bring in Ray Hasenstab. Welcome.
Thank you, Taylor.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a little while.
It has been. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you.
So, like I read prior to the break, the MLB is relocating the All-Star Game from Atlanta to Denver. So what are your thoughts on the whole thing?
Well, I'm surprised, first of all, that Denver was the place selected, because I had heard rumors that Pittsburgh was considered to be the place that they were going to hold it.
The city would have gone crazy.
Oh, absolutely. And it might have generated some money for the Pirates. But for me, I'm not sure what to make of it, because yes, it is bringing light to an issue that has clearly been in the national headlines, but to me, there has to be a clear point of like separating the game from stuff outside the game. And in my opinion, something like this is outside the game. As I was discussing with some of our crewmates before we went on air, it also didn't seem like a player's decision. It was made by the league and the league only. So, are the players okay with it? Are the teams okay with it? Because if it's just the league doing it for the sake of the league, that's one thing. But if they're doing it because the players said, yes, we want this move, we want to bring light to this issue, that's another.
Right. That makes sense. So you kind of, I don't want to say like beat around the bush because you definitely didn't. You definitely answered my question. But
Yeah.
do you agree with the move? Or do you think that it is too far removed from baseball?
Personally, I think it is too far from baseball. And I disapprove of the move only because this further blurs that line of, okay, can we keep this stuff on the field and can we keep this stuff off it? Because last year for the NBA, when they canceled a week because of the George Floyd shooting, okay, but then when they had all the different names on the back, it was tough. It was probably tougher for the announcers to see, like, okay, who is this? Oh, it's this player, but they just got all this different stuff on the back, which I wasn't really a fan of, only because having called sports games, that's an easy indicator of like, yeah, that's number 34 is this player. When they have the name on the back, it just messes you up.
Okay, so like you said, there were rumors that it was going to be in Pittsburgh. It was
Yes.
then moved to Denver. Besides Denver and Pittsburgh, where else would you have liked to see it play?
Detroit.
Be played.
Because I think in a city, when you deal with cities that have this voting rights issue, Detroit, if you want to play there, Detroit has had issues, but that's a place that has had issues previously, but has fixed them. If you want to make a statement, go somewhere like there where they figured out what they're doing. I also wanted to go back to an earlier point on separating the game from not. Going back to the NBA for a second, the blurring line was also Daryl Morley last year. He spoke out in support of Hong Kong, which I completely agreed with. However, the league did not, and he was basically blackballed. So where's that separation?
Yeah, it's a very thin line that you have to dance in, a complete gray area. There is no black and white situation to this.
And I know there are a lot of people who just say just stick to sports, and I can see where they're coming from. But on the other side, there is some awareness that needs to be brought to these issues.
It's like a celebrity using their platform, because at the end of the day, athletes, especially the really popular ones, are celebrities.
Oh, absolutely.
They're millionaires. They could be billionaires eventually, depending on brand deals and stuff like that. But you look at someone like LeBron James,
Yes.
or in MLB, someone like Aaron Judge. You know, those are the people that have the sort of platform that they can use to get light on these issues.
Yes.
Personally, just going back to the where it's taking place, I would have liked to see it take place in Milwaukee, because the whole All-Star weekend is honoring Hank Aaron,
Oh.
and he played in Atlanta, but he also played in Milwaukee. So I think it would have been a nice homage to him to have it there.
Now that you mentioned it, it would have been a great homage to have it played where he once played. I think he was also with Los Angeles Dodgers, so it would have been nice to have him play there.
Right.
But honestly, if you want to make a statement, moving it away was probably not the best move. And if you would go somewhere that isn't as politically active as Georgia, probably would have been a better move, in my opinion.
So to kind of lighten up the air,
Yes.
the Home Run Derby now is going to be taking place in Thin Mountain Air. Who are you most excited to see participate in that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because Fernando Tatis Jr. really impressed a lot of people last year with how his ability. Even though he's injured now, I have a feeling by the time that rolls around, he's going to be healthy. If he can do what he did last year to impress a lot of players and earn him a massive contract, I think he could be a very good contender for that Home Run Derby. But for lack of better terms, it's an open field.
I'm going to say two very obvious things here. Aaron Judge, Vlad Jr. That's it. That's all I want to see. But thank you so much for joining us once again. It was
No
great
problem.
to have you back. And that's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to join us next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, and of course, the same Pioneer Sideline.